Jake, you love Jeff Nichols. You're a big Jeff Nichols guy.
I am. I am in the bag for Jeff Nichols, you could say.
Let's do one of these YouTube exclusives we love to do and rank Jeff Nichols movies. What I think we should do, because I think we've been goofing a little bit, is I think we should go in chronological order and just say where we rank the movies.
Yeah.
So Nichols' feature premiere was a movie called Shotgun Stories. He's made 6 movies. We should start by that. Saying that. We should also maybe say a little bit about him. I just heard him in an interview because the Bikeriders came out recently on the Big Picture podcast. He's a pretty humble guy. I think he sees himself as very much an indie filmmaker who is not part of the big Hollywood system. He mentioned that he had been offered to write A Quiet Place Day 1 and turned it down and was like, why didn't you come to me with one of the other Quiet Place movies? I'm a rural guy. I don't do city stuff. I thought that was pretty funny.
So, yeah, he's just a guy he's from Arkansas.
Yeah. So Krasinski wanted him for that. And you can see through his films, he is interested in talking about folks from the country, folks from the South, except for his latest movie, which is still about, outsiders, but they're outsiders from Chicago. But he started with Shotgun Stories, which is came out in 2007, about 2 sets of half-brothers who, after their fathers die, get into a good old-fashioned Hatfields and McCoys type feud. And it gets gnarly, mostly because of 2 major incidents that happened between the 2 sets of brothers. And then, by and large, it's about Michael Shannon's character learning how to be a better man, because that's what Jeff Nichols movies are about. Michael Shannon doing something.
Michael Shannon is in every one of them, by the way. We can preface that too. We'll be talking a lot about Michael Shannon here.
Yeah, in fact, in the Bikeriders, I was surprised he took such a back seat to the leads. Not the first time that it happened, but
right.
Where do you have Shotgun Stories on your list?
Shotgun Stories I have at number 4. I think for a debut, it's really very good. I think Michael Shannon, of course, is just tremendous in it, as he always is. I tell you that one of the things that just broke my heart about this the most is just thinking about the kids. The 3 main characters' names are son, boy, and kid, because that's how much their parents cared about them right when they were born, which is, maybe a little bit over the top, to say out loud, but in the context of the movie, I think they really...
They never say it out loud. That's what I love about it, is it's total subtext. I mean, you pick it up because you have media competency, but Michael Shannon, when he's making his big speech at his dad's funeral, never says, and we didn't even get real names. It's never brought up.
Oh, I mean, just me saying it out loud, trying to explain it might make it sound, but yeah, the movie definitely does not do that. Yeah, and I really like the progression of the characters, and nobody intends for the bad things to happen to them. It's just they're just not equipped to handle, I think, the emotions that they're dealing with, and it all comes out in some, like I said, some pretty gnarly, upsetting ways, and it's a little more hopeful by the end, but it's there's some pretty big drama going on through that movie. But yeah, it's my number 4. I think it's I have it at 4 stars. I think it's really, really very good.
I have it at number 5, 3.5 stars. I think it very much feels and looks like a first-timer movie. It reminded me of Sterling Harjo. His pre-Reservation Dogs movies look very much like they were made on the cheap, and this does too. In fact, the only thing that makes this film look professional is that Michael Shannon's in it, but even that doesn't... I mean, it's not Michael Shannon so young like he is in Groundhog Day, but... He's real skinny in this. It's pretty wild. He's a tall guy, but as I'm watching him, I'm like, wow, you're kind of frail looking, actually. And then everyone else is an unknown. There's not one other name.
I didn't recognize anybody else.
And it's not like he's leaps and bounds ahead of everyone skill-wise. I think Kid is very good. I think Boy is not as good. And Boy is given a lot to do in the final scenes of the movie, so a lot rests on him, and he does his best, I imagine, but he's not as talented as the other folks in the movie. But it just looked very amateurish, which is interesting because one of the things Jeff Nichols is known for, rightly so, is these beautiful wide shots that he does. These real stirring scene-setting shots that put people in a place where you can understand what they're feeling, even though you can't see their face because the camera's so far away. In fact, that music video that Nichols directed that Michael Shannon's in, I wrote in my Letterboxd review of it that it feels like a parody of Jeff Nichols movies because it's all just moody wide shots.
Yeah.
And Michael Shannon saying, "Where's my brother?"
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a terrible Michael Shannon impression. But a compelling story, and I really cared about what happened to everyone in it, which is cool. But yeah, number 5, 3.5 for me. And then next up, Nichols made Take Shelter, I believe.
Yes, that is correct. And that's when he peaked for me. That's my number one Jeff Nichols movie. We'll have a full episode about this movie. That's our 2011 movie on the Never Did It podcast proper. But I think this movie is amazing. It's about a guy, again, played Michael Shannon is the lead in this movie, who may or may not be experiencing schizophrenic episodes. And this is kind of about how he goes about dealing with those, with his family, with his job, with his friends, with his community, and kind of what may or may not be going on in his mind. I think it's my favorite Michael Shannon performance. And if you know anything about me and how much I talk about Michael Shannon, I love every Michael Shannon performance that there is. I think he's just amazing, one of the best actors going that we have today. And I think he's great. This Jessica Chastain is in this too. It was part of an amazing run that she had in 2011, where she was in like every other movie. She plays the wife in this, and she's very good in it. I think this is just an amazing movie, and it's my number one.
So it's my number two. I also like this movie quite a bit. I watched this on an airplane, as I watched a lot of movies recently because I was on a lot of airplanes. Funny story, as the movie is starting to come to an end, Shannon and Chastain go to see a therapist. And you hear the therapist's voice before you see him, and I'm like, that voice sounds really familiar. And then they show him, and I realize I know this guy. Like, I've met this guy. I've had a long conversation with this guy. A few weeks ago, I was invited to be an extra in a movie. Well, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm an extra in a movie that was being filmed in my apartment building. And there was one professional actor in the scene, and his name is Jeffrey Grover. And he was the actor who plays the therapist in this movie. And I about spit when I saw it. Like, it's Jeff. I have this guy's email address. I actually owe him a message.
Yeah.
So that was a fun moment. I did not know he was in Take Shelter.
Oh, I'm glad we timed that one to have you watch it right now.
It could almost not have been more perfect. So yeah, it's my number two. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. We talked about on our 1997 episode about how much I really like movies where you can interpret that the movie is either supernatural or mental illness or maybe some other third thing. And that's what this whole movie is about. Shannon is afraid that he's having schizophrenic episodes because his mother suffers from schizophrenia and has his entire life. But at the same time, you can't help but feel like the world's about to end. And the ending has some validation for Shannon's feelings, but it's still left on a cliffhanger. It makes you feel quite a bit like maybe you should be paying more attention to the people you see in the streets. Well, you probably don't because you live in a small town, but the people I see in the streets screaming about how the world's coming to an end. I like this a ton. I agree with everything you said about it. Everyone's great. It has like a great performances from people who would go on to do big things, like Shea Wiggum.
Love him.
Incredible. Highly recommend everyone watch Boardwalk Empire. He's basically like the second lead in that. The woman who plays his wife, Katie Mixon, is very funny usually in most of the things she's in. She plays it dramatically here. Robert Longstreet is good in his small role here. He shows up again in Midnight Special and the Bikeriders in small roles. And Ray McKinnon also shows up in a lot of Jeff Nichols stuff, and he's very good as Michael Shannon's brother. Yeah, it's a cool movie. I'm really glad I finally watched it. I've been meaning to watch this one forever, and we'll talk about it more when we do our full podcast.
Do you want to talk about the ending when we talk to
we'll save
on the podcast proper? Yeah.
Tune into our full episode covering Take Shelter and The Sunset Limited if you want to hear about really nihilistic stories and how they end.
Yeah.
All right, so next up was the Midnight Special. No, it was Mud.
Mud, yep. Mud came next. Yep. Mud is my other Jeff Nichols movie to get 5 stars, and it's my number 2 movie for him. For me, this is the movie I would have given McConaughey the Oscar for in 2013. I thought he was so good in this. I love the story about the kids doing something that the stuff that they know they shouldn't be doing. I love the whole atmosphere of the movie. I love the whole vibe of the movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I'm due for a rewatch on it. Yeah, I think I really like this movie a lot. I just really think it's great. It's my number 2.
So it's my number 4 based completely on vibes because I saw it in the theater and I don't remember much about it at all except like sort of how I felt about it. And it's that I liked it more than the 2 movies I have below it and less than the 3 movies I had above it. Although maybe I'd swap it with the number 3 if I watched it again. In fact, I have a hunch I would, but just based on how my tastes have kind of changed in the intervening years. But yeah, McConaughey's great. Reese Witherspoon, I remember being quite good. And that's really all I can remember about it. So we can move right on by.
Well, it was one of the last things that Sam Shepard was in. Also, he did a few things after Mud, but not a ton.
And then next up, he did Nichols directed the Midnight Special. So I'm just going to jump the line here because this is my number 1, and it's the kind of movie that I wish Nichols was more interested in now. I feel like it's really in conversation with Take Shelter, just Michael Shannon dealing with things beyond his control and the audience having to wonder throughout, what's really going on here. It's about a little boy who's experiencing something that feels supernatural, and then there's a cult that worships this little boy and wants to use him to a fundamentalist, like I would say Mormon style, but certainly not Mormon cult that is utilizing him as their sort of like communication with their higher power. They're chasing him as his parents have decided to take him away. Michael Shannon and Kirsten Dunst play his parents, and then Joel Edgerton is great as a friend of Michael Shannon's who comes in to help them. In fact, I think it's one of his best performances by a lot. He's great, but it's such a great role for him. And then this is a wonderful Bill Camp. You got a wonderful Bill Camp performance here, which was the first time I ever saw him in anything. And
really?
And I just thought he was so great. Anyway, so I have this at 4.5 stars. It's my favorite Jeff Nichols movie.
Adam Driver is in this movie too.
He is, right? He's who? He's a cop.
Yeah. Yep, he is one of the agents. Yeah, I love this movie too. I think it's really great. It's my number 3, so it's right up there with Mud and Take Shelter as some of the best stuff he did. The science fiction angle he has different from the rest of the stuff that he has, so it's really unique that way. And yeah, I'd like to see him tackle something else similar to this. But like I said, I do think there are some echoes of Take Shelter here, and it's another one where Shannon is just, of course, just out of this world. He really just is outstanding in this, and another just great movie.
But unfortunately, he didn't stick with sci-fi. In fact, from then on, he has decided to make movies about real people who existed, and that started with Loving, which is my number 3. Although, as I mentioned, I like it a lot. I think it's very, very good. The story of the Loving versus Virginia court case about miscegenation, its legality, and Ruth Nega's great in this. It's Joel Edgerton again, right? Really good.
Yep. And Ruth Nega is Oscar nominated for this too.
Deserved.
Yep, his first. I should say that's the first Oscar nomination for one of his movies. After all those great great movies, yeah, this is the first thing of his that got any Oscar nominations. Yeah,
that's wild. Nick Kroll shows up in a serious role as their attorney, which you wouldn't expect. Although you'd expect more now. It's clear that it's a funny thing about Nick Kroll. Turns out his dad was like a billionaire, and all of his comedy stuff is just like a way. He was always going to be famous. He's working his way in, but although I doubt "Don't Worry, Darling" helped his case very much.
Oof, that didn't help anybody.
No. That being said, I think this was good, and I had kind of hoped that he would pivot away from stuff like this afterwards, but because it was so critically acclaimed and successful, he's kind of doubled down on this direction in his career. So for that reason, I'm annoyed by Loving, but on its own, I like it a lot. What do you think about Loving?
Loving, I agree, is excellent. I have it at number 5 out of 6, but again, I have it at 4 stars, and I think I like all of his movies a lot. So just because I have it at number 5 is no insult or anything. I think it's very good. Yeah, Edgerton and Ruth Negga are both very good in this. Michael Shannon again shows up. This is a very, very small part for him. I think he's only in like 2 scenes. He's a photographer for Life magazine, I think, something like that. So it's a very small part for him, but of course he is still in it. But yeah, this is very good. And gosh, came out in like 2016. So I mean, it took him 7-8 years before his next movie would come out. So what was he doing besides making that one music video?
So he talked about this. I just don't think that the offers were really there. Like the things that he wanted to work on were really there for him. I'm sure he's working on other stuff. He's a director. He's probably doing commercials. He's writing. They make money in other ways than credited ways. But
right, true.
But he's not a rich guy. He's not like living in a mansion. I think he probably still lives in Arkansas,
presumably.
So speaking of that, the movie he made after all those years is The Bikeriders. I have this at number 6. This was the first Jeff Nichols movie I watched where I thought, ooh, no, the bloom is off the rose. Something's happened. I thought the first hour was pretty good. I then thought, this movie doesn't need to be much longer than an hour, and got real bored in the second half. I think Austin Butler did what was asked of him here. But I think making a character like that the lead in your movie is, kind of Jodie Comer is the lead, but the movie is not really care about her in the same way that it cares about Austin Butler's character, Benny. And we just don't know anything about him ever. So when at the end of the movie, he has his big breakdown, I'm like, go away. I don't care about you. His performance is quite good, but I think it's the movie's fault that it didn't ring super loudly with me. I thought the movie much more cared about Tom Hardy's character, and Tom Hardy's character is sort of dispatched, in a way that shows that the movie cared about him, but also not in the climax of the film. Yeah, I was left kind of disappointed. I'd heard medium things about it, and I felt in the end kind of aggressively medium about it. And it's my number 6. What do you think of the Bikeriders?
Also my number 6, but I still liked it a little bit more than that. Did also like the performances, but agree that there's some confusion on who on main characterness between Jodie Comer and Austin Butler. I felt like more of the focus was on Jodie Comer, so you should have really done more with her and maybe kept Austin Butler a little more in the shadows, a little bit more mysterious. I do like that, if you say Austin Butler's main character, both Jodie Comer and Tom Hardy definitely wanted to have sex with him, and I think that there was some interesting some interesting things kind of going on that way that they could have maybe done a little more with. Still, I think Tom Hardy was really good in it, and I really like this kind of odd dichotomy of the characters, who you have these characters who are so desperate to prove that they're men that they will do the most childish thing possible and start a no girls allowed club where they all dress the same and ride their bikes and play together. I just think that's a really interesting kind of direction to take these characters. And the Tom Hardy, so what happens to his character at the end, I think is so sad and so just really pathetic. He's going to if we're going to spoil the Bikeriders, to give it a beat here, he's going to a fight with a kid. He's going to go knife this kid, and he just ends up getting shot. I mean, just for nothing. What were you doing, man? You're almost 50 years old, and you're going to go knife a kid, just to protect your rep. And just kind of this sad, pathetic man who couldn't, who just couldn't get anything else out of his life. And also, what the hell was Tom Hardy's accent? Where does that come from? Where does he get?
Well, where does Tom Hardy's voice ever come from?
That's what I'm saying. Where does he get these voices from?
Yeah, he's out of control.
He is. Someone's got to stop him. But overall, I liked the Tom Hardy performance. I liked Jodie Comer. I think, as I said, I think the movie maybe could have focused on her a little bit more. I walked out of it as a 4-star. It might be more of a 3.5 star, but I did still like it, and I think there was good stuff in it. And again, Michael Shannon, I think, really sums up the whole movie for me. I think I wrote this in my Letterboxd review, but there's got this one scene where they're at the campfire, and he's talking about how he didn't get to go to Vietnam. All he wanted to do was go to Vietnam and be a soldier, which again, all he wants to do is be part of a club, part of a group. He wants to belong to something, and he couldn't go to Vietnam because they said, you are an undesirable character. We don't want you. And he tells it this just amazing monologue that, of course, it's Michael Shannon. Of course he does. And just that one line, we're undesirable character. We don't want you. That's everybody in the movie, and I really like that. So good movie, but still my number 6 in the Jeff Nichols filmography.
Okay, I'm going to push back on that in a second. But first, I want to say, I've heard a lot of people complain that Jodie Comer's accent was either annoying or seemed inaccurate. But let me tell you, my Midwestern family has accents like that. My Aunt Marlene, hi Aunt Marlene, sounds exactly like Jodie Comer in the Bikeriders. She clearly, whoever this woman is based on, studied the hell out of the accent. People really do talk like this. I mean, it really is how some people talk. And my Aunt Marlene was one of them.
People at my work talk like that. I mean, I talk to people during my week, my daily or my regular week talk like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's legit. Okay, now let me push back on this undesirables thing, because I think it actually gets at how the movie could have been more interesting. Austin Butler is so desired by everyone. For one thing, and he is the main character. Benny is the main character. Everyone wants him. No one understands him. Everyone wants him for themselves, except those two mobster thugs in the bar. Tom Hardy, like you said, is just a silly guy who feels pathetic and decides to make a bike riding club and ends up getting killed for it. What I think is more interesting is that thought. Not that these people are undesirable and thus came together, but these people didn't know what to do with themselves, had a weird idea about masculinity, and then fell into just hanging out with each other as buds in a kind of homoerotic way. I mean, the movie is quite homoerotic, like you mentioned, in the Hardy and Butler relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They never kiss or anything, but they get close one time.
They really do. I thought they might, actually.
Yeah. The more interesting dynamic, which they only kind of half paid attention to, was the transition from the club to being a social club to a outlaw motorcycle club, where they became real outlaws. Now, they're outlaw motorcycle gangs. They're an outlaw motorcycle gang in the movie. Butler is wearing a 1%er patch, which is the 1% of motorcycle gangs that break the law. But when Hardy gets killed, Comer says that that's when they became a real bunch of outlaws and started murdering people and running drugs down from Canada and stuff we hear about with these outlaw motorcycle gangs. That transition, which is less important to Nichols than the relationship, the love triangle between Hardy, Comer, and Butler, says more about these men than whatever the relationships we got did, because we got so little of Butler and what he actually cared about. So I almost wish, I mean, I don't almost wish, I absolutely wish the movie had been about Hardy and explored what it meant to see something you created for one reason be warped into something else by a different kind of angry man who took your message and went the wrong way with it. I just think that's a much more interesting story. Yeah. Maybe someone will tell that. And I hope they do, because Mike Feist, for as much as I like him, as a narrative arc, I know they did it because this is based on that guy's book.
Right.
But as a narrative device, I didn't need him. And I thought that kind of pulled away from everything. You know how I feel about narration in general.
Right. God help you if you use voiceover narration.
I've never seen that movie. I still need to see adaptation.
I think it might be on our list.
No, I know. I mean, I know that line is from that movie, but
I've never seen it. What did I choose for you for 2002? Oh, Frailty. I love both those movies. Oh, what am I going to do?
Oh, well, I'll just watch it, man. I'll just watch adaptation.
All right. Maybe and I see in 2002 you've got a couple of different things chosen for me. Maybe we'll just do a twofer for 2002. We'll
that's a great idea. We'll do a double episode for 2002.
Yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options for me for 2002. So
I'll pick two.
We'll just pick two of them. We'll do two.
That's great. All right. Well, that was it for the Jeff Nichols rankings. Come back and listen to our Take Shelter and the Sunset Limited podcast this week.